what was initially supposed to be an 8-day mission to space has now turned into 8 months for astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sunita Williams. They flew to the International Space Station in June aboard the Boeing's faulty Starliner capsule and will now be returning to Earth on a SpaceX vehicle early next year. During the mission, the Starliner's propulsion system suffered a series of glitches beginning in the first 24 hours of the flight, which led to months of cascading delays. 5 of its 28 thrusters failed and it sprang several leaks of helium, which is used to pressurize the thrusters. In what is a rare reshuffle, the 2 astronauts are now expected to return on the SpaceX Crew Dragon aircraft that is expected to launch next month. 2 of the Crew Dragon's 4 astronaut seats will be left empty for Wilmore and Williams. The big question now is, what is the physical and mental health impact of this on Williams and Wilmore, and how will this impact them? Well, let's quickly listen in first to what NASA has said on this development.
NASA has decided that Butch and Sunny will return with Crew 9 next February, and that Starliner will return uncrewed, and the specifics in the schedule will be discussed momentarily. I want you to know that Boeing has worked very hard with NASA to get the necessary data to make this decision. We want to further understand the root causes and understand the design improvements so that the Boeing Starliner will serve as an important part of our assured crew access to the ISS.
Joining us live at this point is Dr. Suresh Nayak, former ISRO Group Director. We also have Group Captain V.N. Jha, former Joint Director DRDO, live with us. Also with us is Dr. Neeraj Gudara, Orthopedics, Max Healthcare. Dr. Kapil Kakkar, Senior Psychologist, also joins us live. Dr. Nayak, let me begin with you first. What do you make of this latest development? These astronauts had gone just for a few days to space. They've now been stuck there for months, and it seems that they will be until early next year.
This time, NASA has used the Starliner of the Boeing for this mission. And there seems to be that problem of helium leak in the thrusters. And there are about 28 thrusters on this module, out of which 5 were found not working. But then in the last few days, they have been able to repair 4 of these 5. 1 is still not working. And Boeing tried to convince NASA that now, by means of ground test and all that I think we can now get them back. But NASA is not convinced fully, and they don't want to take any risks. So that's why they have decided to use SpaceX Dragon module for this rescue mission, because that has been used before for sending supplies, sending astronauts to there and getting them back. So it is a proven thing. So now what is going to happen is, first, as I think it has been mentioned by you earlier, the Starliner module will be undocked. They will bring it back to Earth, and then the SpaceX module Dragon will take off and it will dock with the ISS, and then the astronauts will enter the module, and then it will be undocked, and then it will be deorbited. Deorbiting means reducing its velocity after it is launched in the orbit again. And how this velocity is reduced, I would like to just touch upon it. You see, there are thrusters on this module, and these thrusters can be reoriented as you want by means of a gimbal mount. And if you want to reduce the velocity, then they use retrofiring, that means reverse direction firing, to reduce its velocity. So once it has been changed its direction, and then if it is fired, then it will be moving with a slower velocity. Automatically the orbit will come down, and then the main engine can be used to increase its return faster, and then the re-entry, and again coming back to Earth safely. These are the steps. Now what has happened is, as I told, that in one thruster there is a helium leak, and that found, and let me tell you also to the viewers, this helium is required to pressurize the fuel and oxidizer, which are stored in a separate tank, and this pressurization of these tanks is required because once some fuel or oxidizer is consumed, then there will be empty space, and unless there is helium, it won't flow. So that's why the helium is very important there. And helium is used because it is lightweight, it is inert, it won't react with any other chemicals, and at the same time it is something which really has atomic weight very small, very less. So because of these things, helium is used, and it remains in the gaseous state even in the cold and hot temperatures which are involved there. So because of that, the helium is used. And then if the helium is leaking, it is a very dangerous thing, because then you can't change the altitude as orientation and attitude as you require. So that is why NASA has decided to not to use a Starliner module to bring them back, but send SpaceX Dragon module for that particular thing. So that is the basic technological part of it. Thank you.
Yes, let me take that to Group Captain Jha as well. Group Captain Jha, what do you believe was that fundamental flaw which has caused this massive delay, and how is it going to work now? How is their rescue actually going to work now on board this new vessel which will be going into space early next year?
Thank you very much for your question. Look, human space program is a very, very tricky issue. I've written a book almost about 3 years back about the human space program, the intricacies of it, all aspects of it. And when Starliner problem had happened after launching on June 5th, 6th this year, I had written one article and also sent it to NASA as well as to the SpaceX. The topic was NASA Boeing may send SpaceX Crew Dragon to bring back the stranded astronauts. And the reason for this was that there's a basic rule in space launches for the human programs, human space missions, that should you have the slightest of the problem encountered before launch, you must not launch that unless it is some emergency. The Boeing Starliner didn't have any emergency to be launched with the faulty thrusters that it had. And remember, there was only one thruster which had the leak here on the ground before being launched, and that too a very minor leak, which possibly the scientists thought that it should go on with this. But what happened after being launched? The pressure differential that increased with the exterior. In the space there is no pressure. Here on Earth we have got 14.7 psi pressure. So with this pressure differential, more and more thrusters became unserviceable. Now this is very difficult to explain why the thrusters, almost 5 of them, became unserviceable during the crucial period of being docked. You know, NASA has got only 2 points for the docking. The ISS has got only 2 points of docking with the NASA port and 3 points of docking with the Russian Zvezda or Nauka that they have. So Russian things are right now empty. Their NASA ports, whether it is Boeing or it is the SpaceX, cannot port. One is already docked there as an emergency return to Earth. So there is only 1 port empty. And for that 1 port empty also, SpaceX had sent their Crew Dragon with the supplies about, I think, 3 weeks or 4 weeks back. So right now there is no space for them to send another Crew Dragon. Now look, the Boeing crew model which had gone there, there is no guarantee that more thrusters will not fail. And I would like to explain to your viewers. The International Space Station is about 400 plus kilometers above the Earth. And when we have got a crew model which has to come back to the Earth, so it, as Mr. Nayak had explained to you, that first it decouples, then it is reduced in the velocity. Remember, it is revolving the Earth at about 12.5 Mach of the velocity, about 7.6 kilometers per second. It's a hell of a lot of velocity. So when this particular model in which the crew will be there is decoupled and decelerated, it is being pulled by Earth, and in that process velocity increases further. At the time of entry to the atmosphere, velocity is as much as 25 Mach or so. Should this velocity exceed slightly further, 27 or 28 Mach, there is a possibility of the Crew Dragon coming up there in the atmosphere and then slipping off. It will go back to the space. So such possibility is there if the trajectory of return to the Earth is not proper, which is being made by these thrusters. Normally many of the thrusters, these thrusters have got very small maneuverability with which it can be maneuvered. Some thrusters which is firing in the X line can be made to fire slightly plus or minus 5 to 10 degrees or so, but not much. So there is a very special need for all these thrusters to be working as it should be to guide the trajectory, unless otherwise there is a possibility of it going off. Now these crew models have got the limited resources. They can survive for a day and a half, or two in that crew model. Say you can call it the Crew Dragon or the Starliner which is gone there. Should it slip off to the space again, it may not come for next many days back to the Earth for the re-entry. So all these possibilities are there, and that is why most of the scientists, even NASA, had suggested that let us send the Crew Dragon for the crew to be brought here, and the repair of in situ repair of the Starliner which is stuck there. It is a bleak possibility unless it is modular in the design. All these spares go from Earth, from the Boeing to the International Space Station, and they are able to do that particular repair. It's not easy. Sunita, William, or Buck, they are not trained into repairing this particular Starliner. Of course, they are trained in staying aboard ISS for many months. That is possible. But no one goes to spend time on the ISS. If there is a particular task, research, for these research, these crew are given special training here on the ground, and the particular task they perform in the ISS. So that is the type of need of staying there, and there is a very costly, amounting to about 12.5 lakh or so per day. That is the resources that they consume. So it's a very, very costly business of keeping an astronaut there afloat ISS. So all said about it, I like to wind up by saying that this particular step of NASA was required on the very first thought, that they should have tied up with the SpaceX, send the Crew Dragon with the crew model, which has got the EC and LSS, environmental control and the life support system. With this, they should have sent it there and got the crew back. As far as the disabled Starliner is concerned, that can come back to the Earth without crew. Should it catch fire, or should it slip off into the atmosphere, into the space again, that is that can be written off. There is no need for it to cry off.
Yes.
But in case if it comes back, yes, they should be able to analyze that what was gone wrong and what should be done. So these are the possibilities with what they should have gone there.
Okay, let me quickly bring in now Dr. Neeraj Gudara. Dr. Neeraj Gudara, so many weeks and now months in space. What is the impact of all of this on the health of these two astronauts?
Yeah, hi. Good evening, all. So the most important thing whenever someone goes to the space is because there is no gravity. These people are under the effect of microgravity there. So what happens because of the microgravity? there is sudden loss in the bone mass as well as the muscle mass. And it all happened because whenever we are when we are on Earth, because of the gravity, the weight bearing bones, which are basically the long bones in the leg and the thigh area, so the muscles around them are on a continuous pull. So but in the space, that pull is not there, and because of that pull is not there, the calcium absorption from the in the bone, so it basically leads to sudden depletion, which is equivalent to a disease known as osteopenia, which basically happens in the later life. And it is all because of the weakness of the bone. And both of these astronauts are at a high risk of getting fractures and losing bone mass. But yeah, they are trained to do all kind of exercises, physical activity. But because of the microgravity, these things happen at a very fast rate. And if we go by the books, it says that around 1 to 2% of the bone mass as well as the muscle mass is lost about in a month or so, and they are staying for another, I guess, 8 months. So this will again leads to depletion of the bone mass and the calcium and all those things from their body, and the weakness, and the chances of again getting the fractures are very, very high now. And not only on the effect is on the muscle mass and the bone mass, the effect is also on the kidney system. So because of increased loss of calcium from the bone, it leads to more chances of getting kidney stones, specifically when you are in the space, because there is distribution of the fluid as well. So because of this distribution of the fluid in a different manner, so the fluid is not much in the lower part of the body, it is mainly in the upper part of the body. So the kidneys are not able to filter all the calcium that is basically getting secreted from the bone due to the bone loss. And so the chances of developing kidney stones and pains because of that are very, very high. And also the effect of the mental health is also there. And the chances, the dose of radiation that we basically receive on the earth is very, very less as compared to the dose that they are getting there on a daily basis. But there are some protections in the craft by which it is reduced, but it is not up to that extent. But the main effect which they will be having from an orthopedic point of view will be on their bone mass as well as the bone health and muscle mass. So the chances of all these kind of fractures are very high, and some of these bones do have some kind of a permanent damage, like there's a bone in leg tibia, which is a long bone, another long bone. So if there is depletion of bone health, bone mass in that particular bone, then that is basically permanent. So all other areas of the body can regain their quality once they come back here and do some the protocol which basically NASA has a strict regime for them. But the tibia suffers the most. And if we see the ratio, which bone is mostly affected, it is the number one is hip, the second is spine, and the third is the long bones, which is femur and the tibia. And the chances of fractures are very, very high. So they have to do lots of exercise. And the ideal which the NASA has suggested on their health record side is that they need to do at least 5 to 6 hours of strict protocol regime on a daily basis to decrease this bone and muscle mass loss on a daily basis. Thank you.
Okay. Also, Dr. Kapil Kakkar, senior psychologist, if I can quickly bring you in here on the aspect of mental health, because physical health is something we've just spoken about with Dr. Godara, obviously will be affected by the fact that they are in space. What about mental health? How difficult is it being in that enclosed space for weeks and months on end, and now also coupled with the delay after delay news coming to the two astronauts as well, Dr. Kakkar?
See, these people, astronauts, are very well trained psychologically. They are subjected to several adverse situations and super adverse situations, and they are expected to rehearse and keep repeating those kind of things over and over again. So as far as them coming up with any situation in front of them, they are able to, their coping up mechanism is excellent. Now, what happens in this primarily, if I talk about this particular case, even if we know like Sunita Williams, she's a veteran in this. Now, the two factors which would impact them, one is the health, and second is the age. Like when, even if the experience that Sunita Williams has had in the past, and she went only for 8 days and now she is stuck there, the question here is that will her age be with her on this? So that is, and that primarily can drive into depression, anxiety, things like that. But like I said, these people are so well trained, mentally they are trained, they have to do a lot of mental exercises before they basically are cleared for this, that they are prepared for any kind of situation. Now, the thing which is not primarily in their hand, for example, the doctor was just talking about the mass and the bones, how bones can be impacted. Similarly, the brain cells can be impacted. The tissues in the brain are impacted. And when they are impacted, now that is primarily not in their control because it's a natural phenomenon. Having said that, if NASA has decided these people can stay there till February, they must have collated, like you initially said, they have collated the data and they have understood that perhaps these people can prolong their this thing for another 6 months. I'm sure they would have taken care of all the psychological and the physical aspect. And one more thing, like you also had said, that they have to ensure that these people are occupied all the time. They do not get much time, much idle time, because it is the idle time which is going to have an impact on them. Second is that how well are they able to sleep? In case if there are certain anxiety issues, then they will not have sound sleep, and that eventually invariably will again have an impact on them. So there's a lot of combination, permutation in terms of the input being given by NASA, the new kind of assignments, if they have those assignments, which I read somewhere that they would be putting them for further research and development. If they can do all this, so I'm sure seasoned people like these, they will not have any problem except something which is not in their hand. For example, their health, their brain tissues, which tend to deteriorate very quickly. So these are the kind of things which perhaps one can be concerned about.
Yes, all right. And you know, how does one, yes, okay, Group Captain Jha wants to quickly react. Yes, Group Captain Jha, go ahead.
Dr. Neeraj had mentioned to you very clearly the problems of demineralization of the bone or loss of muscle mass. But what happens, you know, when these people go for a longer stay, people have stayed over a year, many months over the year, they have stayed there and they are used to it. There's a treadmill there on board for which they strap themselves, and then they do the exercise almost about 4 to 5 hours per day that they do. But you have, and the previous psychologist has raised a very important question. If they are able to maintain their calmness, sleep particular parts of it, and the anxiety part of it control. Look, they have been trained to that. Sleep is a problem. There in the space, it is not a night sleep like what we have 12 hours or 10 hours. There, every 90 minutes, the ISS makes one checker of the Earth, and so day and night happens within that particular time, within that 90 minutes. So conditions within the ISS is congenial. They close all the windows when they go for sleep, at least for the place where they go for sleep. They strap themselves, they secure themselves, all the windows are covered, they try to sleep. It is not as easy, it is there. And especially Sunita and Butch, who had gone apparently for 7 days or 8 days, now they are getting stuck for that many months. Surely there will be a matter of anxiety, but then the other people, the other astronauts who have been trained earlier to stay over a year there. So that is how they are there.
Okay.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.